So you need to run your app on your real device. So far, we've been running our apps on using the emulator. The emulator only includes a small number of apps, and there may be there may well just there may well be just one app that can handle action_send. In order to test our app properly, we need to run it on a physical device where we know there will be more than one app that can support our action. For example, an app that can send emails and an app that can send text messages. Here's how you go about getting your app to run on a physical device. Enable using USB debugging on your device. Here, developer options. To enable developer option, tap the build number 7 times. Return previous setting. Enable USB debugging. Set up a system to detect your device. If you're using a Mac, you can skip. If you need to install a USB driver, you can find. I already have it installed. Then plug your device into a computer with a USB cable. Your device may ask if you want to accept the RSA key that allows USB debugging with your computer. If it does, you can check Always Allow from this computer option and choose OK. Running app on your computer. Stop your app running on the emulator. Before you can run your app on a different device, you need to stop it running on the current one. In the case emulator. To do this, use Run Stop App or click Stop App button in the toolbar. When you run your app on the physical device, run the app by choosing Run App. Android Studio will ask you to choose which device you want to run on your app. So select your device from the list of available devices and click OK. Android Studio will install the app on your device and launch it. Okay, it's the device setup. I think I can do it over Wi-Fi. And here's the app running in physical. Let me try the option. We are using QR code. Connect. Get connected. Oh, shit. Okay. Developer option. Wireless. They are using pairing code. Says I need to go to developer options. No developer options. For the still build with the build number. Uh, how do I enable USB debugging? Identifier. Well, okay, I'm a developer. Let's see where the developer options. Take USB debugging, wireless debugging. Okay, let's try this. pair device to enable wireless debugging. Here, enable option wireless debugging when using QR code. Went to wireless debugging, but there is no way using debug mode when Wi-Fi is connected. Just remove. Let's just use uh, just enable USB debug. ये क्या रहा होगा भैया? Oh yes. Uh, Now I want the app to run on what will it run on? This, right? Yeah, much more devices. Okay, I put my send message. WhatsApp. I have a lot of options. Nice. So it did run on my device. What are the next steps? Yeah. If you find that your app looks about the same when you ran it through the emulator, you'll probably find that your app installs and runs quicker too, right? Now that you know how to run the app you create on your device, you're all set to test the latest changes to your app, right? Okay. Try running the app using the emulator and then using your own device. The results you get will depend on how many activities you have on each that support using the send action with text data. If you have one activity, clicking on send message will take you straight to that activity. You only have one activity available on the emulator that can send message with text data. So when we click the send button, Android starts that activity. If you have more than if you have more than one activity, if you have more than one activity, Android displays a chooser and asks you to pick which one you want to use. It also asks you whether you want to use this activity just once or always. If you choose always, the next time you click on the send message button, it uses the same activity by default. Then we have lots of suitable activities available on a physical device. We decided to use the built-in message app. We selected the always option. Great if you always want to use the same app. Not so great if you want to use a different each time. What if you always what if you always want your users to choose an activity? You've seen that if there is more than one activity on a device that's capable of receiving your intent, Android automatically asks you to choose what's an activity you want to use. It even asks you whether you want to choose that activity just one all the time or on just one occasion. There's just one problem with this default behavior. What if you want to what if you want to guarantee that users can choose an activity every time? There's just one problem with the default behavior. What if you want to guarantee that users can choose an activity every time they click on send message button? If they've chosen the option to always use Gmail, for instance, they won't be asked if they want to use Twitter next time. This is the problem with this default preview. What if you want to guarantee that users can choose an activity every time they click on send message button? Fortunately, there's a way around this. You can create a chooser. You can create a chooser that asks user to pick an activity without giving them the option to always use that activity. Okay. So the create chooser allows you to specify a title for the chooser dialog and it doesn't give the user the option of selecting an activity to use by default. It also lets the users know if there are no matching activities by displaying a message. Nice. So intent.createChooser displays a chooser dialog. You can achieve this using intent.createChooser displays a chooser dialog. You can achieve this using the intent.createChooser method, which takes the intent you've already created and wraps it in a chooser dialog. Okay, so you can achieve this using the intent.createChooser method, which takes the intent you've already created and wraps it in a chooser dialog. When you use this method, the user isn't given the option of choosing a default activity. They get asked to choose one every time. This is the intent you created earlier. This is the intent I created earlier. You can pass a title for the chooser that gets displayed at the top of the screen. I think that's the method takes two parameters, an intent and an optional string title for chooser dialog window. The intent parameter needs to describe the types of activity. The intent parameter needs to describe the types of activity you want the chooser to display. You can use the same intent we created earlier as this specifies that we want to use action send with texture. It takes two parameters, an intent and an optional string title for the chooser dialog window. If the intent parameter needs to describe the type of uh, activities you want the user to display. Okay. You can use the same intent we created earlier as this specifies that we want to use action underscore send with actual date. The create chooser method returns a brand new intent. This is a new explicit intent that's targeted at the activity chosen by the user. It includes any extra information supplied by the original intent, including any text. To start the activity, you just need to do this. So, so it includes any extra information supplied by the original intent, including any text. Right. To start the activity, over the next couple of pages, we'll take a closer look at what happens when you call the create chooser method. What happens when you call the create chooser method? Creates intent to the intent. This the create chooser method gets called. The method includes an intent that specifies the action and MIME type that's required. So we have create chooser. Window checks which activities are able to receive the intent by looking at the intent filters. It matches on the actions, types of data, and categories they can support. I need to create a chooser for activities that support the send action and text plain data. If more than one activity is able to receive the intent, Android displays an activity chooser dialog and asks the user which one to use. Hey user, which activity do you want to use this time? It doesn't give the user the option of always using a particular activity, and it displays send message via in the title. If no activities are found, Android still displays such user, but show the message telling that user there are no apps that can perform the action. Then when the user chooses which activity she wants to use, Android returns a new explicit intent describing the chosen activity. Where the new intent includes any extra information that was included in the original intent, such as any text. So then it returns that when the user chooses which activity she wants to use, Android returns a new explicit intent describing the chosen activity and with original data. The activity asks Android to start the specified The activity asks Android to start the activity specified in the intent. Thanks for the intent, Android. Can you start activity now? Yeah. Android starts the activity specified by the intent and then passes it the intent. Okay. The thing is, choose an activity, then this intent is passed. Change the code to create a chooser. Let's change the code so that the user gets gets asked which activity they want to use to send a message every time they click on send message button. We'll add a string resource to string HTML for the chooser dialog, and we'll update on send message create. So it calls the so I'm creating a new string resource string name chooser and send message via send message. Okay. Update on send message. So we go. We already have an intent. Then we string. Okay, string. And then we pass the string. Okay. What is wrong with this? Replace ellipse. Ellipse character. Let's stick with this for now. Retrieve. Now, spelling good. Retrieve the string message from the strings example string chooser message equals get string. Okay. Function get string. Looking for get string function. The get string method is used to get the value of a string resource. Okay, I didn't knew that. Get string r.id chooser. Right? Okay, r.string.chooser. String chooser. We get the string and then we create a new intent. Chosen chosen intent equals intent dot create chooser. Then we pass in the intent that I created and the message. Then we start activity with the chosen intent. There displays a dialog specifying all the activities selected just if you look in r.java, you'll find in the now that we've updated the app, let's run the app to see our children. Okay, let me run this app. Yes. Okay. I send message. Display send message via messages and then it will open new message. Tuesday. That's about it. At least it works. Clicking the send message button will take you straight to that activity just like that. There's no change here. Android continues to take you straight to the activity. If you have more than one activity, we get to choose. Android displays chooser, but this time it doesn't ask if you always want to use the same activity. It also displays the value of the chooser string resource in the title. This is chooser we created with create chooser. It no longer gives us option of choosing a particular activity. If you have no matching activity, you have can perform this action. You have no activities on a device that are capable of sending messages. The create chooser method lets you know by displaying a message. If you want to replicate this for yourself, try running the app in the emulator and disable built-in using the app that's on there. So I can run my apps in the emulator or on a physical device, which is best. Each one has its pro and cons. If you run apps on a physical device, they tend to load a lot quicker than using the emulator. This approach is also useful if you're writing code that interacts with the device hardware. The emulator allows you to run app against many different versions of Android, screen resolutions, and device specifications. It saves you from buying a lots of different devices. The key thing is to make sure you test your apps thoroughly using a mixture of the emulator and physical devices before releasing them to a wider audience. So you mentioned that an activity's intent filter can specify a category as well as an action. What's the difference between the two? An action specifies what an activity can do, and the category gives extra detail. We've not gone into detail about adding categories because you don't often need to specify a category when you create an intent. Should I use implicit or explicit intents? It comes down to whether you need Android to use a specific activity or perform your actions, or whether you just want the action done. As an example, suppose you wanted to send an email. If you don't care which email app the user uses to send it, just as long as the email gets sent, you'd use an implicit intent. On the other hand, if you need to pass an intent to a particular activity in your app, you'd need to use an explicit intent to explicitly say which activity needs to receive the intent. You say the create user method displays a message. You say the create user method displays a message in the chooser if there are no activities that can handle the intent. What if I instead used the default Android chooser and passed an implicit intent to start activity? Let's say the create user method displays a message in the chooser if there are no activities that can handle the intent. If the start activity method is given with an intent, there are no matching activities and activity not found exception is thrown. You can check whether any activities on the device are able to receive the intent by calling the intent's resolve activity method and checking its return value. If its return value is null, no activity on the device, then you shouldn't call. You shouldn't call start activity, right? So your Android toolbox, got chapter 3 under your belt, and now you've added multi-activity apps and intents to your toolbox. A task is two or more activities changed together. The edit text element defines an editable text field for entering text. It inherits from Android class. You can add a new activity while new activity. Each activity you create must have an entry in Android manifest.xml. The intent is a type of message that the intent is a type of message that Android components use to communicate with one another. An explicit intent specifies the component the intent is targeted at. You create an explicit intent using this. To start an activity, call start activity. If no activity is found, it throws an activity not found exception. Use the put extra method. Use the put extra method information in the intent. Use the get intent method to retrieve the intent that started the activity. Use get extra method to receive extra information associated with the intent. Get string extra, get int extra, and so on. Key and pair values. When an activity action describes the standard operational action an activity can perform. For example, to send a message, use intent.action_send. To create an implicit intent that specifies action, we can go intent with certain action. Then to describe the type of data in an intent, use set type data, plain with text slash plain. Android resolves intents based on the named component's action type of data and categories specified in the intent. It compares the content of the default. It compares the contents of intent with the intent filters in each app's Android manifest.xml. An activity must have a category of default if it's to receive an implicit intent. Okay, this is important. The create chooser method allows you to override the default Android activity chooser dialog. It lets you specify a title. It lets you specify a title for the dialog and doesn't give the user the option of setting a default activity. If no activities can receive the intent it is passed, it displays a message. The get user method returns the intent. You retrieve the value for string source using get string r.string.string. Then we have the activity lifecycle. Being an activity. Activities form the foundation of every Android app. So far you've seen how to create activities and made one activity start another using an intent. But what's really going on beneath the hood? In this chapter we're going to dig a little deeper into the activity lifecycle. What happens when an activity is created and destroyed? Which method gets called when an activity is made visible and appears in the foreground? And which get called when the activity loses the focus and is hidden? And how do you save and destroy activity state? We want to find out. How do activities really work? So far you've seen how to create apps that interacts with the user. and apps that use multiple activities to perform tasks. Now that you have these core skills under your belt, it's time to take a deeper look at how activities actually work. Here's a recap of what you know so far. Okay, app is a collection of activities, layouts, and other resources. One of these activities is the main activity for the app. The main activity. Each app has a main activity as specified in the file Android manifest.txt. By default, each app runs within its own process. This helps keep your apps safe and secure. You can read more about it in the Appendix 3, which covers Android Runtime. The your app, your app can start an activity. Your app can start an activity in another application by passing an intent with start activity. The Android system knows about all the devices. The Android system knows about all the devices installed apps and their activities and uses the intent to start the correct activity. The Android system knows about all the devices installed apps and their activities and uses the intent to start the correct activity. Right. Then when an activity needs to start, Android checks where there's already a process for that app. If one exists, Android runs the activity in that process. If it doesn't exist, Android creates it. See, already running activities for this app in process 1. I'll run this app in there 2. This one in there. Okay, so all the activities run within a process. When Android starts an activity, it calls its onCreate method. OnCreate is always run whenever an activity gets created. But there are still lots of things we don't know yet about how activities function. How long does an activity live for? What happens when your activity disappears from the screen? Is it still running? Is it still in memory? And what happens if your app gets interrupted by an incoming phone call? We want to be able to control the behavior of our activities in a whole range of different circumstances, but how? It's a stopwatch app. In this chapter, we're going to take a closer look at how activities work under the hood, common ways in which your apps can break, and how you can fix them using the activity lifecycle method. We're going to explore the lifecycle method using a simple stopwatch app as an example. I think I should create a new chapter. Chapter 4, activity lifecycle. What's the name of the chapter? The activity lifecycle. Yes. The activity lifecycle. And then the stopwatch app consists of a single activity and a single layout. The layout includes a text view showing how much time has passed, a start button that starts the stopwatch, and a stop button that stops, and a reset button that resets the timer to 0. So this is the whole stopwatch. Create a new project for the stopwatch app. You have enough experience under your belt to build the app without much guidance from us. We're going to give you just enough code so you can build the app yourself, and then you can see what happens when you try to run it. We start off by creating a new Android project. Okay, okay. Uh, the menu SDK API. Start off by creating the package named this. The minimum SDK should be 19 so it can run on most devices. Delete an empty activity called stopwatch activity in the layout. Activity stopwatch. Make sure you uncheck the activity backward compatibility. Okay, string resources. Let me create. So this is done. So we'll make a new project. New activity. So stopwatch with the W capital stopwatch Java this first. So all of this two folders to Android.os bundle I think that's right. Android.os bundle Android.app.activity. Then I will create a public class. Oh, no, 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 no. Let me delete these. Java delete it. Let's delete button. Rename. Delete. True intent, yeah. Your name is Bombshell. So we are going to create new class stopwatch extends the date with and then I want to new universal activity underscore sorry no it is activity underscore stopwatch right watch watch the code we start linear layout yes XML and HTTP send this Android layout transparent type. Then let me put Android app put android.app.android.os.bundle. Stopwatch. Okay, then will create created a I'll override the onCreate function protected void onCreate class in the bundle save instance state. Yeah, super dot on create. Yes, call super dot on create the saved instance state, right? And then I will sorry set layout. How do I set layout? Set layout. Yes, set content layout. Dot layout dot stopwatch. This set content view sets the layout the activity. Set content view. I have an empty activity right now. So we need anything else in here. Oh yeah. Android activity. No. Used to be I could reference. I used to reference the package with the activity. No. Let me just it's jump. So define the tools context. Yes. Tools context to define the orientation will be vertical. So we define tools context dot stopwatch Android orientation Android orientation vertical. And can can set text view text view and then ID @ ID slash this will be the type. Okay, but let's not get ahead. I'll just follow this right now. string resources, we will start, stop, and reset. String resources, string, string, start, start, then we have a says resource stop, stop, then reset. Reset. Right, we're going to use three string values in our stopwatch layout. One for the text value of each button. These values are string resources, so they need to be added to string each button. It has given padding, text view, time view, text appearance is large. These attributes make the stopwatch timer nice and big. We'll use the text view time view. So I have to just give a padding of 16 dp. That's all that's missing. Try it. Padding 16 dp. Then I add a text view. Text view. Android ID equals timer view of a time view. Then we set height, gravity center, horizontal, text view. So time view. We go try it. Width, wrap content, right? Wrap content and wrap content. Point layout, height, wrap content. Then I also want to specify the gravity. Gravity equals center horizontal. Then we go enjoy text, text appearance. Appearance equals add invert style. These attributes make the add invert style text appearance dot. Style text size equals to 56 sp. What is text size? 56 sp. Sp. We have button, then we have three buttons. Center horizontal, margin top 20. Start button, stop button, set button. So I can continue creating these buttons. start with an ID. Start button.
Yes,
Then we have, then I give it a text, right? Control it. Text. And the string is open. String slash start. Okay, but text. Click on text start. Text stop. So gravity and a margin at the top. So we give it gravity the then we give it a layout margin top 20 then we define a function connected to which complex start. Click start. I'm just going to copy this. Yeah, stop button. Click stop. So stop. Create another button. Well, reset button. Click reset. Reset. Right. Since stop button that 80 and that 80. Okay, because we are making because we want to differentiate it from this the text view. That's why I have a bigger distance between them, and then we have even distance of 8 dB among them. So got it. That's it. The layout is not down. Let's move on to the make sure you update the layout in strings.xml. How the activity code will work. The layout defines three buttons that will use. Okay, let me define these three buttons here. Click for it. Click start view. Android view. Public click stop. Okay, I should also include the widgets. Android dot widget dot text view. Android dot widget dot button. And set. So there are different three buttons that we'll use to control the stopwatch. Each button uses its own click attribute to specify which method and activity should run the button is clicked. When the start button is clicked, the on-click start method gets called. When the stop button is clicked, the on-click stop method is called, and so on. Okay. Use metal. We'll update the stopwatch using a method we'll create called runtimer. The runtimer method will run code every second to check whether the stopwatch is running, and if it is, increment the number of seconds and display the number of seconds in the text field. To help us with this, we'll use two private variables to record the state of the stopwatch. We'll use an int called seconds to track how many seconds have passed since the stopwatch started running, and a boolean called running to record whether the stopwatch is running. Okay. So two private variables for checking and displaying the stopwatch. Okay. Private and seconds which are set to zero, and a boolean private boolean running, right? Running equals false. Then I have a timer. We'll start by writing the code for buttons, and then we'll look at the runtime method. Add code for the button. When running equals true, running equals false, reset, running equals false, and reset to okay. The user clicks When the user clicks on the start button, we'll set the running variable to true so that the stopwatch will start. So when the user clicks the stop button, we'll set the running to false so that the stopwatch stops running. If the user clicks reset on the reset button, we'll set running to false and seconds to zero so that stopwatch is reset, it stops running. Stopwatch. I want to stopwatch don't tell me. Maybe I should rename stopwatch activity. Rename stopwatch activity. Stopwatch activity. Stopwatch activity. There. Stop. Stopwatch. So we'll set click start. We'll set running equals true. Then we set running equals false. And then finally with running equals false. And the second equals 0. Seconds. Private few seconds is assigned but never accessed. It is accessed here. Assigned but never accessed. That is okay. 3 usages, 1 usage. Okay. Make sure your activity extends activity class, raise, then use the second then running variable to record the number of seconds passed. Whether the stopwatch is running, start the stopwatch, this button gets called stopwatch to the run timer method. Analytics view, time view, string format, local dash default, 6 seconds divided by 3600, second divided by 60, second divided by 60. Next page. I think I should call it a default delay. We will go on to the next question next time.